So there we were then thinking, what year was this number one for Desmond Decker and the Israelites? If you've got any ideas, you can always send us a text, 07935 245 3325 for a Wednesday. I think it's about it might be 1969 actually.
Okay, well, yeah, early 70s, maybe. I'm going to go 71.
Yeah, could be.
This could be the gold mine, couldn't it?
It could be, yeah.
It was the wrong hour.
In fact, it could actually be 1971. It was the year of the sort of skinheads and the reggae when it all boomed, didn't it? Anyway, Steve's back with us now. He's come out of the GTFM cave. Because he sounded a bit tinny apparently.
Two radio professionals sitting around and not realising what end the mic was.
That's right. It looked good, but it wasn't sounding good. But apologies for that. Hopefully we got you back on track now, Steve. So we were talking then about your start at Red Dragon FM. So when was the switch then from commercial radio, if you like, to BBC?
Well, so my commercial radio experience, the year at Red Dragon, and I did some kind of overnight shifts at kind of what is now KISS, but was Galaxy back in the day, so travelling back and forth to Bristol. But that was before I went to university. So I did 3 years kind of in Brighton. Worked on the student radio station there, kind of. To be honest with you, I went to Brighton for 2 reasons. One, because it had a seaside, 2 because it had a student radio station, and it just happened to have a kind of a degree that I could do as well.
Yeah.
But those are the primary considerations.
So they've even got this big tower there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the boy from Tredegar wanted to go to the seaside, and probably quite as far away from South Wales as possible at the time. But what I found there, again, I got lucky because there was a new commercial station setting up in Brighton, kind of called Surf. I went there, a volunteer. They did exactly the same thing, make the tea and all of that, and ended up kind of reading some news bulletins, co-presenting the sports show on a Saturday afternoon.
And do you know what? I always remember Chris Moore, who you know very well, Chris Moore. He always used to say to me, do you know what, Gareth? He used to say, if you can present a sports show, you can probably do any show.
Absolutely.
Would you concur with that?
100%. And just talking about some of the people that I've worked with at Radio Wales over the years. You look at Jason Mohammed, Dot Davis, Gareth Lewis, Illyri Shawn, Oliver Hydes.
Sport.
All of them have kind of got their spurs by presenting sport. And the reason for that is that actually you start in an afternoon setting things up with the best will in the world. You have absolutely no idea what's going to happen over the course of the next 3 hours. So it's your skill as a broadcaster to actually bring that to life for people, and that's where, for me, that's where some of the best broadcasters are kind of come from.
Yeah. So you ended up in Llandaf, presumably. So what year would that have been?
So that was 1998, and that was basically because all the people that I'd worked with in that Red Dragon FM newsroom
had changed.
I'd gone to Llandaf. So I ended up kind of. They pointed me in the direction of Jeff Williams, who kind of is now head of sport at BBC Wales.
Oh, he's still there, is he, Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff's still there, but he was head of Radio Wales News at the time, and I wrote to him and I said, I'd really like to come and just do some shifts with you. And he wrote back and he said, you live in Brighton, I'm not interested. So I wrote back and I said, look, my parents are in Tredegar, I could be there kind of whenever. So he's just like, right, brilliant, start a week on Tuesday at 6 a.m. And do the 12-hour kind of shift. And
as you do,
and 19 years later I left BBC. That's kind of how these things happen.
So it's a process. Obviously, you get there, you volunteer, but then you became editor of BBC Radio Wales in 2009.
Absolutely. So kind of the progression to that point was 4 years in the newsroom, 4 years in Radio Wales, working with some of the greats like Roy Noble, Jamie Owen, Nicola Hayward-Thomas, kind of as part of that morning sequence. I did a couple of years marketing the radio station and some of the other big brands like Scrum 5, and then I got the call saying, look, could you help us out for a couple of months? Kind of the current Radio Wales editor is poorly, and we just need somebody to kind of just look after the station for 2 months, and 2 months became 7 years.
Yeah, that's right.
I ended up kind of going for the job and had the most amazing time, looking after and running that radio station.
So, in many ways, it runs itself with a little nudge here and a little nudge there. But I guess when you've got a pool of people, very, very talented people, does ego ever come into it sometimes? It's a question. Listeners are probably thinking, ask him the question.
Yeah.
Gareth, ask him the question.
I don't know what you're talking about. No.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I think that the
I don't need to name names.
No.
No.
I you know, look, the interesting thing with radio presenters, as you well know, is that you sit in a room on your own, and the pretense that you know, there is a real art form to having a conversation and making it sound like you're having a conversation with somebody else. Yeah. Never a room of people, always one person.
Yeah,
yes, it's a one-to-one conversation. Yeah. Well, there is a certain, mind trick that you have to kind of get into there, and what doesn't tend to happen an awful lot in radio, and I say this as somebody who was a manager for a long time and kind of as guilty of this as anybody else, is that people who do that for a living tend not to get an awful lot of feedback.
Right. Yeah.
So you live in this universe where actually you're talking into a microphone to a mythical person on the other side who happens to be a listener on the other side of a radio set, but you've got very little understanding of kind of how you're doing, and therefore kind of it's a high wire act.
Yeah, absolutely.
And therefore kind of I always tell producers kind of whenever they say, oh, my presenter is worried about this and worried about that, it's just like you have to understand that it's their name on the door. Yeah. It's their show, and therefore kind of that's why they want it to be as good as it possibly can be, because they're the person that's opening that microphone and they're the person that's communicating to that listener.
And it's a great responsibility, isn't it?
Huge responsibility.
Yeah,
huge responsibility. You just look at the fantastic work that you guys have been doing over the course of the last 2 weeks in Storm Dennis.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so...
And I got to pay credit to people like Terry Mann, obviously the station manager. You know Terry, Gavin Powell. Very, very hands-on, and of course other members here as well of the team. But a great job. But
never do people need radio than in that moment where actually I need to know what's going on, and I don't just need to know what's going on in London or in New York or whatever. I need to know what's going on at the other end of my street, and that's where radio comes into its absolute own, and that's where it's at its very, very best. And as I say, I've got to pay tribute to the work that you guys have done for this community over the course of the last few weeks.
Steve, you're a star. Back with you in a sec, okay?